Theater company, the Acme Corporation, about its first show in 3 years, plus a soup story. On the record Friday at 9:30 on 88.1 WYPR.
Programming on WYPR is made possible by Kennedy Krieger Institute. 1 in 6 children has a nervous system disorder, disease, injury, or disability. And donations to Kennedy Krieger help children from the Baltimore, Washington region and around the world pursue all that's possible. To support, KennedyKrieger.org/specialkids. Sun today with temperatures
in 0.3 miles, traffic light camera ahead.
Or in 33 in Frederick at 8:30.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. The UN Security Council is expected to vote today on a resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza amid the war between Israel and Hamas. Hunter Biden has been indicted on 9 federal tax charges. 3 of them are felonies. A federal grand jury in California accuses the president's son of failing to pay at least $1.4 million in taxes owed from tax years 2016 through 19. He's also accused of filing false returns for the 2018
in 0.2 miles, speed camera ahead. 30 miles per hour speed limit.
17 years in prison. A judge in Texas says a woman who's 20 weeks pregnant can legally terminate her pregnancy. 31-year-old Kate Cox lives near Dallas. She sued the state seeking a court-ordered abortion after her fetus was diagnosed with a terminal genetic abnormality. The state bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Her attorney is Mark Herron.
She's grateful that the court system heard that she needs an exception under Texas law. Texas law is incredibly confusing, and the doctors' hands have been tied, and so it's been incredibly frustrating.
He was speaking to CNN. The state's attorney general says,
I'm sorry to do this again, but I have to cancel for today. The end of the semester has just been crazy. Would it be possible for us to meet on Tuesday on campus?
It's 8:32. I'm Ashley Sterner. Governor Wes Moore told county leaders to prepare for some major fiscal belt tightening when he addressed the Maryland Association of Counties Winter Conference last night.
Maryland is facing significant structural budget shortfalls.
Moore's speech came days after his administration announced that it needs to cut about $3.3 billion from the state's 6-year transportation
in a quarter mile, traffic light camera ahead.
He said that other steps will be needed to balance the budget. He urged county leaders to work together to find solutions.
If we face these budget challenges together, we're going to emerge stronger. And we will prove to the people of this state that we can deliver.
Moore also says that administration is planning to introduce legislation to address the structural budget issues when the General Assembly's annual session convenes in January. Maryland saw a dip in casino revenue last month. The State Lottery and Gaming Control Agency says that Maryland's 6 casinos generated just over $157 million in November. That's down about 3.5% from the same month last year. In all, Maryland's 6 casinos sent more than $66 million in revenue to the state last month. The Baltimore City Council has approved another piece of inclusionary housing legislation. It's a tax credit that essentially uses tax dollars to pay developers the difference between affordable and market-rate housing units, with the goal of making up to 15% of units in newly built apartment buildings available to people with lower incomes. Advocates say that the city's new inclusionary housing laws can ease the effects of past redlining and racist housing policies that continue to impact lower-income Black residents to this day. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott is expected to sign a suite of inclusionary housing bills sometime before the end of January. And a programming note, Mayor Scott will join us to talk about this and more today at noon on Midday with Tom Hall. In sports, the Army-Navy football game takes place in New England tomorrow. It's the 124th edition of the battle between the Naval Academy Midshipmen and West Point's Black Knights. The classic football rivalry started back in 1890. This coming Sunday, the Ravens will look to extend a 2-game winning streak when they host the LA Rams. The Washington Commanders are on their bye, so they don't have a chance to break a 4-game losing streak till Sunday of next week. I'm Ashley Sterner, and this is your public radio.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from BritBox with Payback, a new original crime thriller from the creator of Line of Duty and Bodyguard, starring Grantchester's Morgan Christie and Ozark's Peter Mullen, streaming at BritBox.com/NPR. And from Procter & Gamble, maker of Metamucil, a fiber supplement containing psyllium, a plant-based fiber for trapping and access to the digestive system, designed to be taken every day. More at metamucil.com. This is NPR.
Slowest issue on the roads right now is the issue that is facing the southbound 270 in Frederick County, which is crawling from Route 80 down to Route 109. On the Beltway, we're slow on the inner loop from Reisterstown Road to the JFX, on the outer loop from Ice Marsh Boulevard to Perring Parkway, and again from Security Boulevard to the Baltimore National Pike. Southbound 97 slow from Route 32 to Generals Highway, southbound BW Parkway slow from Route 100 to Route 32, and road construction is setting up on Reisterstown Road at Milford Mill Road, closing the right lane and beginning to slow traffic there. Also, light rail service in the Baltimore area has been indefinitely suspended at all stops. This as the MTA performs emergency inspections of every light rail vehicle in the fleet. Shuttle service will be available while the light rail is offline. This is WYPR.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Michelle Martin. Good morning. The University of Pennsylvania's Board of Trustees gathered yesterday to discuss comments made by the school's president during a House hearing on campus anti-Semitism, comments that have set off a firestorm of criticism.
Like other university presidents, Liz McGill faced questions about her school's rules. A lawmaker asked if, quote, calling for the genocide of Jews would violate the university's code of conduct. McGill, along with the presidents of Harvard and MIT, answered in various ways that it depended on the context and whether the speech was connected with hostile action. Now, a congressional committee says they're going to investigate the universities.
NPR's Tovia Smith is with us now to tell us more. Good morning, Tovia.
Good morning.
Okay, so the pressure on these presidents seems to be escalating since this hearing. What's the latest?
Well, the blowback has really just continued to intensify since they were grilled on whether students' calls for genocide would violate campus rules. And their answers ranged from maybe to long-winded lawyer-like dodges that prompted outrage from a broad array of very strange bedfellows, from Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who was firing the questions, to Elon Musk, who called the answers shameful, and Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, who questioned the university president's ability to lead. Jonathan Greenblatt from the Anti-Defamation League was even more pointed. Here's what he said.
It's time for new leadership. It's not just a failure of their fiduciary responsibility. It's an utter collapse of their moral responsibility.
So, Tovia, some of the presidents have issued clarifications of their positions, but I take it that doesn't seem to be helping.
Correct. Harvard's president reiterated that calls for genocide were vile and students who make threats against others will be held to account, but she stopped short of saying that those calls for genocide amount to such threats. Penn's president, Liz McGill, did go further, and maybe a little too late, but she's saying now that she's reconsidering Penn's policies. Here's how she put it.
The call for genocide of Jewish people is threatening, deeply so. In my view, it would be harassment or intimidation. These policies need to be clarified and evaluated. We can and we will get this right.
So I take it she's saying she's convening a group to do this. And Tovia, these are three pretty big institutions, and I imagine there's a range of opinions. But were you able to speak to anybody on these campuses to get their thoughts about all this?
Yeah, there are some who say the presidents had it right the first time, being purists on campus free speech, and they're dismayed now to see the schools caving, as one put it, to the political or financial pressure. I'll also share another more nuanced take from Harvard professor Steven Pinker, who's a staunch advocate for free speech, but also critical of what he considers a hostile environment for many Jewish students. He does not think Harvard's president deserves to be fired, in part, he says, because removing her will not fix what he sees as a much more deep-rooted problem. Here's how he describes it.
I mean, it's like firing the coach when your team isn't doing well. It kind of feels good. It's a response to a demand. It doesn't solve the problem.
And Pinker's among the many who've accused universities of hypocrisy for cracking down on speech that offends the left, but allowing speech from the left that, for example, is making many Jewish students feel unsafe.
And as we mentioned, Congress is now investigating these schools. What does that mean?
Yeah, that House committee that held the hearings this week says it's now officially investigating schools' disciplinary policies, and it won't hesitate to subpoena documents if it needs to. And that's prompting complaints now that Congress is not also investigating Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian or anti-Arab hate on campus.
NPR's Tovia Smith. Tovia, thank you.
You bet.
Here in the United States, some politicians want to stop undocumented immigrants from the border wall. In the United Kingdom, they want to deter people from arriving by saying they will be deported to Rwanda in East Africa. After a number of legal challenges, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is unveiling his latest legislation to try to make that happen.
It will mean unequivocally that Rwanda is safe, and there should be no more blocks to our ability to get people on planes and send them to Rwanda, because that is critical. We must have a deterrent that says if you come here illegally, you cannot stay and you will be removed.
Madeline Sumption is studying the Prime Minister's plan. She is the director of the Migration Observatory at the University of Oxford. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
The Prime Minister made this statement while standing with a sign that said, "Stop the boats." What's that mean?
So the background to all of this is that over the last few years, people have started coming to the UK without permission in small boats, basically rubber dinghies with about 50 people crammed onto each one, across the channel from France. And the numbers of people who have been doing that have increased substantially to around 45,000 last year. And this has created a lot of anxiety, and the government is under a lot of pressure to stop people from arriving in this way that was never a thing in the past and has become quite dominant in British politics. So the idea of the policy is to try and create some kind of deterrent to stop people from wanting to come to the UK to claim asylum. That's what the main reason that people are coming here is to put in asylum claims, effectively applying for refugee status.
And the deterrent is you don't get to stay. You get sent to Rwanda. What happens? You get put on a plane and you just have to live in Rwanda? Is that the deal?
Yeah, so the idea is that people will be sent to Rwanda, and Rwanda will process their asylum claim and give them status there, and they would never be able to come back to the UK. I should clarify, though, that it's very unclear how many people would actually be sent. The government has been a little bit cagey about the precise numbers, but it's quite possible that actually only a relatively small share of people will be sent back to Rwanda, in which case it might be that most people who come across the channel in small boats do actually still get to remain in the UK.
How would it then be a deterrent?
Well, that's the big question, and I think there's a huge amount of uncertainty. I think probably it would be the case if a large share of people were sent to Rwanda. I think probably it would have some deterrent. One of the problems, though, is that actually some of the people who come across are not very well informed about what the policies even are, and research from other settings where governments have tried to deter asylum seekers has often found that these deterrent policies are not as effective as governments hope. So I think there's a huge amount of uncertainty about what the deterrent effect will be, if any, but it is certainly very possible that the policy won't work in the way the government hopes.
Well, assuming that some people are sent to Rwanda, the UK Supreme Court, the top court, has already ruled that Rwanda is not safe for migrants to be sent there, but the government just says it's fine.
Well, the government has passed legislation declaring Rwanda to be safe, and so that will effectively prevent the courts from weighing in on it again. That is quite an unusual move, and lawyers here say they've never seen anything like it.
Madeline Sumption at Oxford University's Migration Observatory, thanks so much for the time.
You're welcome.
You're listening to your NPR news station, member-supported 88.1 WYPR. Morning Edition continues until 9:30 this morning. Stay tuned at 9:30 for On the Record with Sheila Cast. Then listen this morning at 10 o'clock for 1A's Friday News Roundup.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer invokes the Gipper and goes after Republicans for blocking more aid to Ukraine.
Ronald Reagan would be rolling in his grave if he saw his own party let Vladimir Putin roll through Europe.
Also on the roundup, Donald Trump says he'd be a dictator only on day one if he wins a second term, and former Speaker Kevin McCarthy announces he has no plans to seek another one. That's all next time on 1A.
Here you go, Friday News Roundup from 10 till noon. Then listen at noon for Midday.
I'm Tom Hall. Coming up on the next Midday, it's Midday with the Mayor. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott joins me to talk about inclusionary housing, another subsidy for the Hilton Hotel, and the city's financial picture, plus some radio theater with Vincent Lancisi and the cast of Dial M for Murder at the Everyman Theater. We'll talk about the show, and we'll hear a few scenes. Join us from midday at noon on 88.1 WYPR, your NPR news station.
Programming today is made possible by the Daily Record. The Daily Record's where Maryland's business and legal news is available 24/7 online and Monday through Friday in print. For information on print and online subscriptions, thedailyrecord.com. Support also comes from Green Spring Station, hosting the 9th annual Holiday Makers Market, a one-day holiday marketplace featuring pop-up shops, live holiday music, a holiday cocktail bar, and more. Taking place this Saturday, December 9th from 10 to 4. And tomorrow's event is open to the public. Information's at greenspringstation.com. Now 40 degrees in Baltimore and 34 in Frederick. Temperatures climb to the mid-50s this afternoon. Gonna be sunny today. Lows around 40 tonight, back in the mid-50s tomorrow. It's 8:45. This is WYPR.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from the Joyce Foundation, committed to advancing racial equity and economic mobility for the next generation in the Great Lakes region. Learn more at joycefdn.org. From the Wallace Foundation, working to develop and share practices that can improve learning and enrichment for young people and the vitality of the arts for everyone. Ideas and information at wallacefoundation.org. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Michelle Martin. One of the great things about this country is that people celebrate holidays in their own way. From skiing Santas in Maine to an ice menorah in Tennessee, NPR's Rachel Treisman has this roundup.
Most people can only dream of watching Santa climb down their chimney, but in western North Carolina, you can watch him rappel more than 300 feet down a rock formation.
We like to say that Santa uses Chimney Rock, one of the largest natural chimneys in the world, to prepare for his big job on Christmas Eve.
That's Olivia Slagle of Chimney Rock State Park Management. She says the park has been hosting this event for more than 25 years. Santa climbs down the rock several times over the course of 2 days. Each descent takes about 10 minutes, with photo ops in between.
We also have hikes with an elf.
Slagle says it's a great way for families to get outside, even on days that don't feel Christmassy.
We have had days where it was 60 degrees. The elves were kind of sweating in their velvet costumes.
Santa's good driving a sleigh, you should see him on skis. And at the Sunday River Resort in Maine, you can. As many as 300 Santas shoosh down a mountain, beards and all. Here's Marketing Director Luke Burns.
All of the Santas get on the chairlift. We hold everyone back till everyone's there, and then we let them loose. And it's a free-for-all of Santas skiing down the slope.
The requirements are minimal. You must dress as Santa, but
sometimes you get a Christmas tree, sometimes you get a Grinch. It kind of is the unofficial kickoff to the winter Christmas season here in Maine.
Proceeds go to a local youth nonprofit. Last year, the Santas raised $3,000. If warm and fuzzy aren't your holiday thing, the Seinfeld universe has you covered. You can celebrate